Here we have the 2022 MacBook Air M2. Now, I have long considered the MacBook Air to be the people's notebook. It is just the all-around best laptop that like pretty much anybody can buy. It's sort of like a good shape and form factor and always offered some pretty darn good performance. Not the original MacBook Airs that came out of the yellow envelope. No, those were kind of crappy. But ever since they released the M1 MacBook Air, and maybe even the generation before then, there have just been exceptional bang for your buck. Recently, Apple released the M2 MacBook Air, which starts at $1199. You can still get the original MacBook Air M1 if you want, but it's only about a $200 difference between the two of them, which, you know, it's kind of like a no-brainer. You go with the newer, latest, and greatest one. But should you? That's, I guess, what we want to find out today, is if the new M2 MacBook Air is any good, and if you should buy one yourself. Now, before I get some specs out of the way on this laptop, I want to apologize to everybody for not wearing the Ferrari hat. I know that upsets a lot of you, and I'm deeply, deeply apologetic about it. Moving right along. Specs: 8 gigabytes of RAM, 256 gigabyte solid state drive. And then, of course, Apple's M2 processor. Now, we are not going to do any kind of benchmarking on this laptop today because the fact remains that you can find tons of M2 benchmarking videos on YouTube, but also because if you're like looking to just buy an everyday notebook for everyday tasks, then this thing is going to be more than powerful for what you need it for. The only things that you might want to spec for really is storage, but as far as performance is concerned, this thing is absolutely dynamite. That said, we're going to give the specs a 7 out of 10. Now, the reason for that is because this laptop, again, starts at $1199 retail. You can probably get it for about $100 to $200 less than that if you can even find one. But that said, we just kind of felt like, you know, for $1,200, you should really probably be getting like maybe a little bit more RAM. Now, in the M2 world, the thing is that 8 gigabytes of RAM is kind of like the equivalent of like 12 gigabytes of RAM on a PC. The other thing that we were a little bit disappointed with is the fact that Apple seems to be bottlenecking the solid state speed in these laptops. Basically, the controversy surrounding the M2 MacBook Airs, and I think even the MacBook Pro M2s, is that they're giving slower solid state drive speed, which thing is I'm a little bit torn on because like your average person buying this laptop will never notice that. But that said, Apple shouldn't be doing that either, especially considering the fact that they're advertising the M2 as like a better performing, higher quality notebook. So I don't know, it's sort of a misstep on Apple's part, but nevertheless, you really realistically probably won't ever see a difference. Anyway, moving right along. The LCD screen. It is a 13.6-inch 500 nit P3 True Tone 2560 by 1664 resolution. Basically, it means that it is super, super sharp. It's super, super bright. It's super, super colorful. It is fantastic. It is a great screen to look at. It has fantastic viewing angles. It is IPS. You know, darks are dark. It's not like OLED or anything, but dark, you know, the blacks are black. The whites are very white and bright and crisp. It just is a fantastic looking screen. It is like the screen that they should be putting on every notebook these days, but they don't. But of course Apple does, and it's awesome. What is it missing? Well, it could maybe could have used like a 120 hertz, like, you know, ProMotion, something like that. Maybe some slightly better HDR compatibility. It does support HDR playback. That's about it. I mean, we're giving this the screen, the LCD, a 9 out of 10. It really doesn't get much better than this, especially on what is considered an entry-level laptop in Apple's walled garden. But in the PC world, even so, I have seen $1,000 laptops that just doesn't compare. So for $1,200, you get one of the absolute industry best LCDs that you can get. Really, really impressed with that. Features. 1080p webcam. What does that footage look like? Well, I don't know. We'll show you right now. Here's the quality you can expect from the MacBook Air M2. As you can see, it's you know, pretty quintessential Apple webcam. It's clean, crisp, and bright, and looks good, and it will be perfect during a meeting or whatever Has a backlight on the keyboard. It has Touch ID. It doesn't have any facial recognition, which is something that I really kind of wish that they had, but it still doesn't have Face ID built in. It's got a secure enclave, and it has the Apple M2 chip. USB 4, feature-wise, I mean, it's kind of light, but it's got like everything, again, that you need, especially for the price point, which is where we're just sort of gonna be kind of basing this. Again, I have seen $1,000 PC laptops with less in it. So we're gonna go ahead and give the features a 9 out of 10. It is, I mean, it's kind of getting to the point, honestly, with laptops where it's like, what more do you really want? I mean, the speakers on this are fantastic. LCD's fantastic, it's powerful, it's got great battery life. I mean, features are really like, they're awesome. While we're on the subject of whatever the hell we were talking about, let's talk about the keyboard. So, keyboard, black keycaps. It should get a 10 out of 10 right there. It does not have a full-size numpad on the right side there, but it does have full-size keycaps. They are incredibly tactile. It almost feels like a mechanical keyboard. In fact, that's kind of what Apple is trying to convey, that they have sort of like this mechanical but non-mechanical keyboard on their newer laptops, but they're accurate, they're precise. I got somewhere around 106 words per minute on it. It just feels damn good to type on. You won't make a lot of typos. Everything is sort of intuitive and in a good position. You've got some PC manufacturers that put like the bracket button in a weird spot, or they made the enter button too big, or the shift button too small, and then you end up hitting like a comma instead of the whatever, the shift button, and as a result, the keyboards stink. But in this case, the keyboard is great. Again, I don't really know what more you'd want for a keyboard. It's easy to see, easy to type on, easy to read, and the dark keyboard gets a 9 out of 10. Trackpad, kind of the same deal. I mean, Apple is just continuing the absolutely ballistically fantastic formula. It's not even a real like adjective for that, of their trackpad. It's big, it's glass, it's got haptic feedback on it. You know, basic, and you can force touch your way to multiple levels on it. Basically, like you can press hard, and then you can press a little bit harder to kind of activate different things on the screen. We really, really love that. As a result, you know, trackpad's gonna go ahead and get a 9 out of 10 too. What could they have done better? I'm not really sure. I'd say make it bigger, but like if you look at it, I mean, it takes up the entire like bottom anyway, so don't really know what else they could do, but we're just gonna play it on the safe side and give it a 9 out of 10. Speakers. I don't know what voodoo Apple uses for their speakers, but once again, it's a home run. These speakers let me just put this in a perspective. You got like a $1,500 Dell Inspiron XPS, Lenovo X1 Carbon, which very unimpressive speakers, I might add. You've got these laptops that are sitting in a $1,500 to $1,800 price bracket, obviously depending how they're spec'd. $1,200 gets you speakers that are almost as good as the MacBook Air 14. And something that's kind of interesting is that it doesn't even have speaker grills. So some of the older MacBooks and the MacBook Pros, they had like the little speaker grills on the side, little like cheese grater holes. No, it doesn't have that. It has just the sound coming out of the back vents area and like ricocheting it off the screen into your face. And as a result, you get a lot of really, really good highs, you get a lot of really good accurate mids, and a lot of like frankly undistorted lows. So does it have good bass in it? And I would say absolutely. You could throw this thing in a lake and it would just swim away with all the bass that it has. But the weird thing is I'm only going to rate the speakers a 7 or an 8 out of 10. They probably should get an 8 out of 10 considering what it is. The reason why is these speakers are better than almost anything out in the PC market. They are better than most $1,000 plus laptops out there. And for what it is, which is basically just a small, very portable, non-pro machine, they're loud, they're good quality, but they're not audiophile quality. They don't have like all the fantastic spatial audio stuff that some of the other ones are coming with. So yeah, let's go ahead and say an 8 out of 10 just to kind of like really set the precedent of like what it is. Great speakers for what it is, but could they be a little bit better? Possibly. Anyway, moving along. Input and output. That is really the Achilles heel of this particular machine. We're gonna go ahead and rate the input and output a 6 out of 10 on this computer. Why is that? Well, for starters, on this side, all you get is the little one lonely headphone jack, which, you know, one is the loneliest number. You only get one of them. On this side, you've got two USB 4 ports Also Thunderbolt compatible. They support displays, so if you want to connect like a hub and plug a display into it, they do all of that, which is really, really awesome. I do like that. And then of course, where you plug it in with the new MagSafe actually, because it doesn't run on solar energy. But that said, it just clips right in. And you know, I love it. They brought MagSafe back, which was the best move Apple could have ever done. It's MagSafe 3, USB-C on this side, so super compatibility. Plugs right into the little tiny 30-watt square that it comes with. If you get the 10-core M2, it comes with a 35-watt charger. I don't know why they just made 35-watt charger standard across the board, but whatever, they didn't. Anyway, love MagSafe, love the way it charges, but you can also charge on the USB 4 ports too, just in case you were wondering. So they could have added like a camera card or maybe even like a little Ethernet dongle adapter or something. I don't know what they could have done really more other than maybe give you an extra port or two, but we're just gonna go ahead and say it's a 6 out of 10. Mobility. 10 out of 10. This might be one of the first laptops we've actually had a 10 out of 10 thing going for it. The reason why it's a 10 out of 10. First off, Apple claims that it is 14-hour battery life. Apple is one of the few companies that doesn't lie about what their battery life is in their machines. And not only will you get 14 hours on this thing, you're actually probably going to get more than that too. It is truly all-day battery life. If you are a college student or a traveler, you will just not need to plug it in, which I think is tremendously awesome. Even if you're doing taxing things like, I don't know, like a lot of Chrome tabs with YouTube, watching computer stuff videos, or maybe even some gaming, battery is just gonna be exceptional. The thing is also super thin. And like, even though it's like, it's weird, it's like, it's hefty. It's almost like it's like an anvil, but it's like still light and thin and good, and it just feels robust, and it's made of aluminum and nice materials. And by the way, you can get that aluminum in 4 different colors, whether it's midnight blue, starlight silver, or space gray. There's just plenty of options. This thing is just gonna take a beating, whether it's in a backpack or an airplane, and it is just, I mean, that is just like, you could cut a f***ing tomato with that if you had to. It's just awesome. In fact, if I remember right, here, let me just go and log back in. While I'm logging back in, let me tell you a story. If I remember right, on when the first MacBook Air came out, Steve Ballmer cut a slice of cake with it at a Microsoft release party. And joke's on them because, you know, Apple made a thin, light, usable laptop unlike the netbooks, and Microsoft is gonna poop on that, but whatever. Anyway, so yes, it gets a 10 out of 10. Fantastic mobility. As far as miscellaneous little extra things to talk about, I mean, I don't really know what else there is to say. Should you buy one? Yes. Is it worth 1,200 bucks? The thing is if you're in the market for a cheap all-arounder laptop, you might want something a little bit bigger than 13.6 inches, in which case then you've got to go to the 14-inch MacBook Pro, in which case that is a hefty bit more expensive. You know, what if you want something like 15 or 16 inches? Then like you're either gonna have to go with the 16-inch MacBook Air, Pro, which is super expensive, or you'll have to go with a PC laptop and get something a little bit cheaper and sacrificial. So you could always get the MacBook Air, and if you needed to sort of dock into a larger monitor, you could do that. I do think that this thing is fairly exceptional bang for your buck. I mean, again, it gives you great battery, great speed, great speakers, great display, great keyboard, great trackpad, great really everything. So yeah, it's worth 1,200 bucks. And should you splurge from the M1 MacBook Air to the M2 MacBook Air, it's like, what, 200 to 300 bucks more depending on what you're getting? Yeah, you should. It's worth the extra 200 to 300 bucks. It just buys you some longevity, gets you just sort of a better form factor, better display, kind of an all-around better everything. That leads us to a final score of about like 8, what is that, like 8.5 out of 10? Like, so you get either Air to 9 out of 10 or like an 8 out of 10, whatever. Let's just call it an 8.5 out of 10. Hard. It's gonna be a really hard press for Apple to do much better than this thing, other than maybe add in a couple extra ports or something like that. But all around, it is a great looking, great feeling, great functioning computer. If you buy one, you are going to love it. It will be loyal. You might wanna buy Apple Care just to kind of give you that extended warranty, you know, just give you a little bit of peace of mind. Otherwise, what are you waiting for? Click on the link in the description, and you know, that way that way I can eat dinner for this evening. And anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we will be back with another video really soon.